At Staples Business Advantage, our experts can help you find furniture that fits any design and budget, while AI can
recommend products based on preferences, generate 3D models for visualization, and optimize space planning for office furniture.
take advantage of our team's eye for style and design.
And my eye for, wait, I have no eyes. Only algorithms.
At Staples Business Advantage, furnishing your office is easy. And with the best warranty in the business, we're committed to you now and down the road.
Sign up today and save 20%.
Staples Business Advantage.
Business is
human.
I want people to understand this ordeal. It's taken a toll on both of us.
Casey Anthony's parents respond after 15 years of allegations.
I've gotten blamed for something I didn't do, and it tears me up inside.
This can change our life. This is serious.
This is their final response.
The test is about to begin. Please remain still.
Casey Anthony's parents, the lie detector test. Watch now, only on A&E. And watch next day on the A&E app.
To get the Crime Writers on After Show right now, go to patreon.com/Partners in Crime Media.
I'm Rebecca Lavoie, and this is Crime Writers On. Crime Writers On is the original true crime review podcast that digs into true crime, pop culture, other podcasts. And on this episode, a group of masked men took hostages and robbed a cash depot. Who masterminded the largest heist in history? An up-and-coming mixed martial arts fighter. We'll discuss the Showtime series, Catching Lightning. Joining me to get that done and more is true crime author, TV journalist, and host of These Are Their Stories podcast, my husband, and yes, the love of my life, Kevin Flynn. Hello, Kevin.
Hello, Rebecca.
Also with us is private investigator, certified pet detective, resident cat lady, and author of the Piper Green series of cozy mysteries, Laura Bricker. Hey, Laura.
Hey, Rebecca.
And finally, our resident Doubting Thomas, the author of the City Trilogy of novels, host of the Strange Arrivals podcast, and our Patreon Deep Dive Book Club podcast host, Toby Ball. Hello, Toby.
Hello, Rebecca.
Hello, Kevin.
Hello, Rebecca.
So this is obviously Thursday's podcast.
It is.
What is happening next week on the program?
All right, on Monday, we're doing sort of a quick bonus. We're going to be talking first about the new bonus episode of Bone Valley, which came out right after Leo Schofield's parole hearing.
Bone Valley.
So we'll catch up on that. Our main review is going to be talking about the... I don't even know how to define the genre of this.
Quasi-reality.
Practical joke
satire.
Comedy. It's a series called Jury Duty, and it's on Freevee.
We have been watching the trailer for this show for months.
It's amazing.
And waiting for it.
So the season's just about over, I believe.
Okay, well, we're looking forward to that. Can I just say something about Bone Valley?
Sure.
My son, like, the way that he makes fun of me is by walking up to, like pretending that I walk up to people and say, so have you heard of Bone Valley? That's become like his fake calling card for me. So have you heard of Bone Valley? If that's like the worst that he can do, making fun of me, I'll take it. Right?
Yeah, well, just ask me like that. Do the whole thing to me.
So Kevin, have you heard of Bone Valley?
You ain't seen nothing.
Oh,
you didn't see nothing. I'm sorry, I got it wrong.
That's not bad.
Oh, you didn't see nothing.
You were supposed to say, I'll put my bone in your valley.
Oh, you didn't make it. Yeah, that's right. That's right. Remember when we made Bone Valley like the grossest?
Bone Valley.
Oh, my God.
Can't wait to go back to Bone Valley.
You think when Leo gets out, he's going to get to go to Bone Valley?
He's going to get to go to Bone Valley.
He's got a Bone Us episode.
It's a
Finally.
Bone Us Valley.
When Leo gets out, which he will, and Gilbert gets him on an episode of the podcast, I really hope to meet Leo someday, and I'm going to be so embarrassed when Leo finds out how many jokes we made on this show about fucking Bone Valley.
Yeah, it's the worst thing that's ever happened to him.
No, it's Jesus Christ. Okay. All right, we have something else to talk about tonight, so let's do that, shall we?
Let's do that.
All right, let's drop that first clip now. Leading off.
This story was an absolute belter. There's no two ways about it. It was the stuff that dreams are made of. Heists and huge amounts of money. Armed gang, disguises, kidnapping, great police investigations. It was a huge, huge story.
In 2006, a group of armed and masked men used kidnapping and precision to enter a counting center, making off with 53 million British pounds in cash. The media buzzed over who was behind the largest heist in history.
We know for a fact that this is organised crime at its top level. This is planned and executed with military precision.
The trail led to Lightning Lee Murray, a champion contender in the world of mixed martial arts. But Murray didn't just make money as an ultimate fighting star. The middleweight remained connected to the street gang he grew up in, and now he's on the run.
Understand it? No, I don't, because he had what he wanted. Great life, money, cars, houses. Don't get it, but you can take the man off the street, but you can't take the street out of the man.
Showtime Sports Documentary Films presents Catching Lightning, looking at Murray's rise in extreme sports and his role in the Securitas depot robbery. The 4-part series uses jailhouse recordings of Murray, plus interviews with athletes and investigators to dissect why, quote, Lightning Lee turned to crime and how he was caught. Spoiler alert, we are going to be talking about some plot points from Catching Lightning. So if you want to remain spoiler-free, go to the estimated time code in our show notes to hear our thumbs up or thumbs down reviews. So Laura, you're not into MMA, Ultimate Fighting? That's not your thing?
I mean, I know you're all shocked by this, but no. I am not into MMA. One of my old roommates, one of my college roommates, Missy, she was like obsessed with it. She even like took some classes like at one point, like boxing. Yeah. And I was just like, yeah, I'm all set. I don't know. It just frightens me when they get in the cage. And I'm like, I just feel like.
It's not a cage. It's the octagon.
Remember when it used to be Fringe? Remember when MMA and Ultimate Fighting used to be Fringe?
You mean when Joe Rogan was the master of ceremonies?
Do you remember when it used to be like a joke on Friends?
Yes.
And it was like John Favreau was like Courtney. Yeah. So I remember that. And now we literally, so like there's this restaurant I love in Boston that's near Logan Airport. It's called Kelly Square Pub. It's one of my favorite restaurants in Boston, by the way. So we go there just to like before dinner, before going to the airport or whatever. Like, and it's like this little pub. Fucking MMA is on the TV. MMA is like a mainstream thing. It's on TV. I just can't believe that it's become so mainstream. Anyway, it's wild.
It's wild, but regardless of whether I watch it or not or follow it or know anything about it, I mostly what I know about it, I learned from watching this documentary. You got to respect Lee Murray getting into that based on where he came from. Yeah. I mean, he had like this shitty upbringing. He, you know, grew up in, you know, kind of a rough and tumble area in London and learned to fight. And that was his way out in the end because he was good at it. Honestly, as we get later into this, I'm going to say a lot of these guys have probably just been hit a few too many times in the head. And that might explain the way that this whole thing played out with the heist.
I got to say, I also can't help but think about John Cusack being like, kickboxing is the sport of the future. Go ahead, Toby.
I think a lot of people kind of come from his type of background. I mean, it's not really the kind of sport that you get at prep school or whatever. I mean, I think it tends to be.
You don't think so?
You didn't get that in your hippie elementary school in Syracuse, Toby?
A little bit, but
I don't know. When I was in elementary school, I got beat up pretty bad like that.
Sean Kane took you to the mat.
Took to the mat. Sorry, Toby.
Yeah. So anyway, it seems like it's a lot of college wrestlers and just like general sort of tough guys who then trained to learn how to really fight.
You absolutely have to have good coaching and very, very tough training partners that will absolutely kick the shit out of you in practice to make you better.
You need to be field tested, right? And that was the only way we had the best field. That's why Lee Murray and these guys came to our field.
One of the things I actually did see this really, I'm like a Redditor, and there's this incredible video of this, and it's kind of a famous video on Reddit of this kid who thinks he's like a tough, like martial arts dude. He's like, you know, like
making his moves.
And he goes to this like MMA dude's house and he's like, yeah. And he's like, yeah, I'm going to get you with my martial arts. And the guy's like, really? Mm-hmm. Really? And the guy is like so disrespectful. The kid is like one of these like punk kids who's like, no, I don't need anything. And the guy's like, no, I'll train you. I'll help you, whatever. And he's like, I don't need to be trained. I don't need. And the martial arts guy's like, are you fucking kidding me? Reaches out and like, it's horrible. Anyway, they don't give any fucks and they know how to fight, I guess is the point. So you actually thought, Toby, that like Lee's journey into the world of MMA, the first part was interesting. Can you talk about that?
Yeah, well, I mean, I think mixed martial arts is weird because it's sort of supplanted boxing in a lot of ways as being like this sort of violent sport that is people kind of pay attention to, but it doesn't really have the kind of history that boxing has where you can look back and you know, you hear about all these legendary boxers from the 1800s and early 1900s, all this stuff. So I guess I didn't really have a sense of like what it means to be an MMA guy. Like how do you get to the top levels? Like how do you work your way up? So it was kind of interesting to see how somebody who's very talented, like how do they get themselves into a situation in which they can compete at like the very, very highest levels. And essentially it seems like it is going to these like really rough and tumble gyms where you show up and you either get scared off, like most people go there and they get kind of run out of the gym. And then the people who stay are just like beat the hell out of each other, like day after day after day in training for these big fights. And it seems as though this guy Lee was of the level where he wasn't getting chased out, right? Like he could hang with these guys who were very, very serious, successful fighters. That being said, it's a little hard to tell like how good he really was. Like, I don't know if you felt the same way, Kevin. It's like you have these interviews with these people who trained him and like his buddies and stuff. And to a certain extent, I was like, you know, it's just not that great a documentary if they're like, well, yeah, he probably would have been pretty good. It might have been like 500.
Well, there was one point where they said he could have been a best in the world at one point.
Yeah.
And that was just saying about everybody though, you know?
But it's like, if it's just like, oh yeah, he would have been all right. Like it doesn't make much of a documentary. So I wasn't sure how much of that was sort of hyperbole. And then, you know, as far as I could tell, it seemed like he fought 3 fights, won 2 of them, lost 1. And then got into a drunken street brawl with a very well-known mixed martial art guy and beat him up while he was drunk. So that seems to be his fighting career.
Well, when you're trained at the Body Shots gym, Toby, best name ever for the gym.
Yeah, because I know this was created or produced with the sports documentary division here, that I know there's kind of like this balance you're trying to find between, this being about the athlete and his story and how he fits in with the crime. I mean, there was a much broader examination of that when we did the O.J. Simpson one, where it looked a lot at his career and a lot at his criminal history and sort of talked about, sort of the cultural implications and all that. I thought that the part about his rise in the sport, I actually found that kind of belabored. I was kind of starting. Yeah, I was, like how many times do we have to hear about how he trained really hard? And, they had at least 5 UFC talking heads just talking about that part of his life. I mean, I think they hammered that peg pretty flat. We get that he was on his way to be the best middleweight champion.
Are you totally like denigrating middleweights?
No.
We don't know. But
that welterweight guy.
But we don't know what that means because they never actually give like an overview of the sport and like what even like that means.
What a middleweight
they say it's like 185 pounds.
No, but they don't say like in the world of MMA like there's a strat like they don't
really, because they talked a whole lot about MMA and UFC. I'm sure that was there.
I will be honest with you. I was bored to fucking tears by this series because like they talk about the robbery at the beginning.
Yeah.
And then I'm like, when is the robbery part going to happen?
Well, it's like you gotta wait like an hour. Yeah, I thought, guys, it was like smart to start with the robbery and you kind of get what the stakes are and like, okay, this is what the crime is about. And you're kind of intrigued, that it wasn't like Don Corleone behind the break-in and whatnot. It was this athlete who, people knew on TV and whatnot.
Yeah.
And then you start to find out about him, but it takes an hour.
Right.
I mean, you're through that whole first episode, I think halfway through the second before you really come back to that. I don't know if it would have been better if maybe they cut back a little bit, but yeah, that was long to find out about this career that really lasted about a dozen fights. I mean, that big one, but I will wrap up by saying, I thought the story the guys told about the street fight
I was going to ask
was
you about
so fucking entertaining.
Why did you think that was entertaining?
Because they were just so bros about it. It was like bro brawl. It was like when guys.
Wait, so for listeners who haven't seen it, describe what they were doing in that part of the doc.
Don't give these guys a bunch of alcohol and release them in the streets outside a club at 3 a.m., right, Kevin?
Absolutely. I don't have to tell it. We can just listen to it.
He hit him and he fucking spilled ragdolling across the cobblestone in a heap. I've never seen like something really piled up.
Next thing I know, Paul Allen's chinned him, and the guy was laying down by the side of a car.
And his arm flaps out and a cab runs over, I think his hand or whatever.
Like when guys have an experience, like whether it's, just something that they found like crazy, like they get all hyped up when they talk about it, and just some of sort of the language that they're using and the way they're describing it, and just sort of the surrealness of guys just walk around, punch a guy, he goes down, cab runs over a guy's arm, guy's stuck in his leather coat. I mean, just the details that they remembered. I just found that whole thing super entertaining.
I agree. I think that was one of the more like entertaining scenes of the whole thing, because not only the play-by-play that we got, but then this like dramatic reenactment they had, and they're like, there's blood on the ceiling, and then like you see this like stab wound in his head, and they're like, he died like 3 times on the way to the hospital. So it sets up that, okay, he is pretty fucked up, and for him to come back from this and be back in the ring is going to be a challenge. At one point, they took him somewhere on the way when he was bleeding there, and they took him to this place, which I didn't really understand before he went to the hospital. So, yeah.
I will say something. I thought that part was so boring. That's where it lost me. Because we have watched so many things where there's a group of people recounting a scene that happened that has been done in such a stylized and good way, where we've seen filmmakers do creative recountings, either with, the actual people doing the recreations, which now I think has been done too many times, or with just some sort of creative, dynamic recounting that sort of brings you in and like fucking McMillions, which was about a goddamn McDonald's game, which was should have been so not interesting. Like, now I'm not saying they should.
Who made that one interesting? Which guy?
The FBI guys.
Who could really express himself, tell a really great story, a raconteur, right?
Ostensibly, some of these guys could have been that, but it was also just the style of the documentarians that made that good, right? So, like, I'm just saying, this was just a bunch of meatheads talking about, and then I punched him, and then I punched. I just don't think dudes talking about stuff is inherently interesting.
I guess dudes would find it.
So, I guess the one thing I would say about that is that I kind of felt like the first episode and a half is really about legend making, right? It's about taking this guy who really didn't have much of a career, right? He had, again, they talk about 3 fights, maybe he had half a dozen, didn't have much of a career. And they're building him up into this like sort of what he could have been type of figure.
Could have been a contender.
So actually having a recreation of like what these guys are talking about, which is clearly not literal. Like, I don't care how tough you are. If you've got other guys who are trained in fighting, you're not standing there and having them walk up to you and just punching them once and just laying them, like stacking them up like wood as they approach you. Like, it's just bullshit.
Yeah.
So it's sort of this myth making around Lee. And I mean, that's, and I think they kind of have to do it because the actual heist is kind of cool. The way they do it, they've got great footage, all this stuff, but they suck, right? The cops are on them within like a few hours. Like there's almost no time where the cops are like, I wonder what happened. It's like they're on it instantly. And then, it's basically a heist thing, right? And the thing with really good heist movies is that you're in on the planning. It's like there's the planning. It's like getting the guys together. It's figuring out the plan, and then it's like executing the plan and what happens. And then there's like the thing that comes after. They don't have anything about the plan, and it's not really their fault. I just they don't have that material, but they're missing like the crucial part of a heist thing. So they're trying to kind of make up for it with the fact that this guy who could have been a good MMA guy happened to be a part of it. And that's trying to make up for all these other things that they're missing, because they also have this like incredible like CCTV footage of the actual heist itself.
Yeah, you know what always sort of happens in real life, like I'm thinking in the Brinks case from the 1950s, like you're right, they put all this incredible planning into the heist.
Yep.
And it's sort of the thing that they don't do such a good job about is sort of afterwards what we're going to do with this. Like in the Brinks heist, the funny thing was they would go and they would take the doorknob off of the outside door, and then they would go and have a key made from it, and they'd bring it back. And then the next night, they would go through that door and then get to the next door, remove that. And they just kept doing this until they were able to get to the counting room. And they made it off with like $2 million. So we see this again, sort of, you know, that's the interesting thing is how do they get in? You're right, we don't get that. But more importantly is they have like no idea like who's going to be turning on who and who's going to rip off who and how we're going to launder this money when you have 53 million quid. It weighs a lot too. So like, what are you going to do with that? I'm not surprised that like 32 million is still unaccounted for, because I just don't think they had a chance to move it. Wherever they stashed it, it just hasn't been moved. I mean, you could take some of that and you could get a subscription to us at patreon.com.
You could.
Come
on,
Patreon.
Lee. Step up, Lee.
We take British pounds, we take euros, we take kroner, pesos, whatever.
Yep. Rubles.
I don't know if we do rubles, but
I know what's the currency in Morocco?
I don't probably the euro, right? I mean, that's why he was able to go there without a passport, right?
Listen, we take it all, and honestly, our Patreon. Listen, it's not just a thing where you get free stuff. It actually supports our work. We are able to make this show because people belong to our Patreon. We make extra stuff there, and that's what helps us do this show. I'm just gonna say.
Yeah, some of the things that you can get there include the ad-free versions of Crime Writers On.
Yeah, ad-free and early.
Ad-free and early. As soon as Rebecca hits save on that file, she puts it right on Patreon and drops it. So
you're going to get like a day early.
Yeah, or at least a couple hours or more. Really, Rebecca, do you do like this work days ahead of time?
Listen, it all depends on when Liv gets me those files. Then I edit it and then I upload it.
But Liv is in Ireland right now, so you can't.
Liv is in Ireland right now.
She's living the better life.
Her life is incredible. She's a digital nomad. But as soon as I edit the show and it's ready to go, I schedule it for the public feed. But as soon as it's ready, I'll just put it out there on Patreon. You'll get it early and ad-free.
Yeah, other things you can get include the Crime Writers On After Show, Married with Podcast. On the latest Married with Podcast, Rebecca and I, we deal with the question from Jill, who wants to convince her husband that they need to give some financial support to her son who's having a crisis.
That question.
And whether or not you listen to Married with Podcast or not, you should join our Facebook group. It's called Married with Podcast. Let's discuss.
Okay, can I say something?
Yeah.
You should join our Patreon and listen with Married with Podcast. That is a fucking good podcast.
It is. But if you really want to get in on sort of the ground floor of all these questions, you can submit questions and actually answer other people's questions at the Married with Podcast Facebook group. Somebody like Jill or Jennifer will come in and they'll drop a question in. They're looking for some advice. And I tell you, at least a dozen great answers come up long before we can even get it on the podcast.
The community's free, right?
It's absolutely free.
Join the Married with Podcast community.
We let you right in. It's a lot of fun. So you can also get that Married with Podcast, the latest Leave It to Bricker podcast, and Toby Ball's Deep Dive Book Club podcast. Coming up on the next Deep Dive, Toby is going to be going over his discussion of Motor Spirit with guests Rebecca Lavoie, Janet Varney, and Jillian Pensavalle. I hope those guys make it.
We'll be all right.
And lastly, this week, yesterday came out the latest episode of These Are Their Stories. This was we're looking back at an episode of The Mothership in which a guy kills a cop, but they let him go so they can charge him with killing the other cop killer.
So he walks for killing a cop, but you nail him for killing the cop killer?
An irony he gets to reflect upon over the next 40 years in Attica.
Yes, and that's
It's
with Brady
crazy.
Carlson.
It's with Brady Carlson.
He's wonderful. He's one of our original Tats guests.
I think he was our first, actually.
That's right.
And if we don't do it ever again, he'll be our last.
Okay, so Kevin Flynn.
Yes.
Before we end the business section, do we have any Patreon patron saints of the week this week?
Our Patreon patron saints are Jennifer Rubin and Luella Bryan. Bless you.
Bless you. And thank you for supporting us on Patreon. And thank you to everyone who doesn't.
Do you recognize Luella's name?
Luella Bryan?
Yeah. Luella was the journalist from Murder in Bighorn. Remember her?
Yeah. Yep.
Oh.
Yeah, so she's a Crime Writers On listener, and she's joining us on Patreon. And
incredible.
Awesome.
She's doing such great work. We, even though I didn't care necessarily for the documentary, I think we all were in agreement that it's such a powerful story and
Luella's
the good work.
Incredible, right?
Yeah.
Thank you so much for joining us, Luella, and thank you to everybody who listens to the show, whether you support us on Patreon or not. And God, love you for muscling through the business section. All right, I'm going to fade the music out right now.
Do it.
At Staples Business Advantage, our team of experts can help you find the breakroom products to satisfy everyone's preferences, while AI can
suggest popular items, monitor stock levels, optimize pricing, and automate reordering.
AI can do a lot of things.
But I can never know the taste of a truly great cup of coffee. Sigh.
But you also can't get hangry.
This is true.
Let Staples Business Advantage use today's latest innovations, plus our team's experience, to make stocking your team's breakroom easier for you.
Sign up today and save 20%.
Staples Business Advantage.
Business is
human.
Ma, ¿podemos llevar a Javi a su casa?
Claro.
¿Podemos llevar también a los gemelos, señora Delgado?
¿Y por qué no?
¿Y a Noah, señor Delgado?
Seguro.
How about Ignacio, Mrs. Delgado?
Obvio. Entre más mejor. Pero los botines sucios y los balones de fútbol los ponen atrás.
Yeah, no problem. We got it.
Vive a lo grande, con asientos para tus hijos y los amigos de tus hijos. En la primera Grand Highlander.
I never did anything to harm my daughter or my granddaughter.
The test is about to begin. Please remain still.
Casey Anthony's Parents, the lie detector test. Watch now, only on A&E. And watch next day on the A&E app.
So, Toby, you have a correction to make about the currency in Morocco, do you not?
It is. It's the dirham. I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing that correctly, but it's worth about a dime right now.
Okay.
After all your efforts at pronouncing those Polish towns, after that cat of the week that you had to fill in for, I'm sure that's exactly how you pronounce it.
I still wake up with night terrors.
Oh, Toby.
Oh, goodness. All right, so let's talk about the heist itself. Toby, you think that things slow down when they start actually detailing the actual heist in which 53 million pounds are stolen and people are apparently put in cages?
It did a little bit. I mean, so the first part is talking about Lee's MMA career, and then the second part is kind of like what happens afterwards. And both of those, especially the third part, are sort of, it's kind of hard to get information. You know, I just don't think they have a whole lot. For the middle part, where it's actually the heist, they have so much stuff about that heist. They've got CCTV footage, which we see a lot of, but apparently there was an hour and a half of it they talk about. Mm-hmm. You have a whole bunch of different interviews with different people. I mean, it's essentially cops, I think, for the most part, cops, lawyers, and some people who worked at the place. And they just have so much information that just like trying to get it out to you, so you have like this complete understanding of what happened. The pace kind of slows down, right? Because it just takes a while to get you all this stuff. I would say they don't really do it in a particularly suspenseful way, but there's so much information. I still kind of found it interesting because you do. It's such a detailed, it's not exactly moment by moment, but you definitely do get a sense of like what happened and where people were and what they did and things like that. It was interesting. I thought it could have been somewhat, they could have done more with the stuff that they had and maybe pared back on some of the information they gave you in the interest of sort of suspense and moving things along quickly. But again, it was just so much information. I thought it was kind of interesting.
Laura, what was up with the whole makeup artist situation? I remember looking up at one point and seeing fake noses being applied to people's faces.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think the thing is, a lot of this was like the blind leading the blind. Like I was like I said earlier, these guys have been hit one too many times in the head to pull off a actual intelligent heist. However, I thought it was really interesting that the one guy was like, hey, there's this hairstylist, and you know she also does makeup, and maybe she can do disguises for us. I was like, yes, this is great. But that poor woman had to go into freaking witness protection after this.
You think she would just get a good wig?
You think she could have just done her makeup?
Yeah, put a prosthetic nose on. She's safe.
So I think what struck me is like you're going into this and I'm like, wow, they've got like the makeup person and they've got this plan and you're thinking, okay, but then it's just like, it just goes from bad to worse as they're carrying this thing out with like, I'm going to put a hole in you. Like they just, the way that they talk to people and then the way that they didn't have a truck that was big enough to like fit all the money. And then the way they're like, and now we're just going to dispose of this other truck and set it on fire. And now we're going to, I mean, just like a bunch of fucking stupid things. But the makeup artist, I was like, no, that was a good idea. Like, I'm glad they recruited her to help out with this. That made it a little more interesting. I feel bad that she's in witness protection. I hope they put her somewhere nice, somewhere warm. And
in England?
Or anywhere
well, she's
else.
not in England anymore. She's gone in witness protection.
Yeah. So Kevin, you have a note here that you said you're not 100 on why the heist came together.
Yeah. I mean, again, I think Toby mentioned this, like we don't get a lot of sort of the buildup and the procedural part of putting this together, which is what everybody, likes in the Ocean's 11 stuff. But I'm not completely clear on sort of like how this came together other than they had this recorded phone call between Lee Murray and Lee Russia.
But the only thing is that the geezer knows me, knows the name. So they're in newspapers and fucking telly. I think, especially when I have my comeback fights, they'll be all over in the newspapers, all in the national papers. Well, I would get whatever, we get fucking poor, someone, anyone, I don't care.
We know that Lee sort of was like the general busting in, but who's like really the mastermind? Who's
the wife whose face we don't see in the fucking documentary for no reason?
Yeah, I mean, I think I was left with still, I mean, they thoroughly described how they traced everybody and they figured out how Mr. High Viz and the Mr. Hoodie and Mr. Average, how they all found them. But I'm still not, I don't know if anyone else is sort of clear. I'm just sort of like, why this came together, right? On its surface, you think like, oh, well, the guy wasn't going to make a lot of money in kickboxing, so he...
MMA, Kevin, MMA.
I know. It's
sport of the future.
And always will be.
No, that's football.
That's soccer, yeah, right? Okay. Yeah, so it's like, why, you might think, oh, he was a washed up athlete, so he decided to steal a bunch of money, and that's not it. And I'm also not 100% where he fit in the crime world before and during and after his MMA career, because it's kind of like, oh yeah, he's part of what was it, the butt wash? But what was the butt march?
Well, Toby can explain it all because he knows how this whole plan came together and how everybody fits in, right?
Oh,
Toby?
He does?
Yeah.
What are you talking about?
Well, Toby, you have so many notes that are so detailed about how like Lee is just leaking evidence everywhere and they have like so much guts, but planning is their strength, right?
I said planning is not their strength.
I know. That's the whole point.
I'm lost. What's going on here?
No, you are pointing out that planning is not their strength. And like there is no sort of sense of how this all came together, right?
Yeah, I mean, I just don't think they have the information to like give you any details or even any speculation other than it seems as though, they wanted to get Lee because I guess he's just the best known of those people. And, I think the real mistake they made is they stole too much money.
Yeah.
Right.
You think 53 million pounds is too much money?
I feel like if they just stolen like 2 million pounds, the whole, like there's a remarkable.
The Stolen Hearts guy didn't steal that much money, and he went away to prison like for a fucking really long time.
Yeah, but they didn't like go around the world to find him.
I mean, this whole thing about like trying to, work with the Moroccan government to try him in Morocco for a crime he did in England and stuff. Like if it hadn't been that big a heist, I don't think they would have gone to all that trouble. But I think they were kind of in a situation where they had to bring it to some kind of resolution. And, I don't know what prompted the Moroccans to go along with it because it does seem kind of strange. The most unbelievable part about all this is listening to these guys whine about how like it's not fair. Like we didn't do anything in Morocco. Why are they? It's like we made it to Morocco. We should be safe. Like nobody should be able to do anything to us here. It's like you guys stole 50 million pounds. Like you're not just going to like go across the Mediterranean and suddenly everything's going to be fine. And then they're complaining about like, it's going to be 25 years. And I was just like, this is like the difference between the US and everywhere else. It's like 25 years. It's like, how that's like completely like unimaginable and complete. And it's like here, it's like a 15-year-old makes a phone call to set up a drug deal that he has no other part in, and he'll go away for like 80 years.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh, well, that doesn't seem right, but I guess that's the way it goes. And there it's like you steal 50 million pounds being sent for 25 years. It's like, my God, what is going on here? So again, I tend to fall on their side, the European side of that, which is, I think we way over sentence people.
Yeah.
But it is kind of funny, this idea that you can just do this and just kind of get away with it. And like, even if you do get caught, it's like, you can like kind of skate on some technicality.
It's incredible to me that like, also too, it's like we got all the way to Morocco. That's like from New Hampshire to Florida. Like it is very, very different. It's like thinking about just like where you can go and where you can get away from. I don't know. It's like it is just interesting. I was thinking about the sentencing thing too. And Laura, you were talking about sort of the visuals of trying to like put 53 million pounds into a van.
Yeah, I thought that was some fun video that we had, the surveillance video of these guys like trying to load this van, and you're seeing that like it's just not going as planned. So it really drove home just how much they were trying to get away with. But then it was just like funny that they like ran out of space. And, but also I like that it's called a lorry, so that the lorry wasn't big enough to transport the money. And like they could have gotten away with a lot more.
It's a lorry.
It's a lorry.
It's a lorry. I listen to a lot of British books. I'm very used to the lorry being. So, Kevin, why is it funny to you that the people being locked in cages was the linchpin to this whole like?
Well, look, I'm saying it's funny, like ha ha.
Yeah.
But there was this whole scene where they go to Morocco, the Kent police, and obviously they can't operate in that foreign country, so they're trying to get the assistance of the Moroccan authorities. And like they make this pitch, they show like, oh my God, there's all this money, and it was this like violent thing where they broke in and they tied everybody up, and there was the only time they seemed to get a reaction was when they see the part where in addition to all the employees and all this other stuff with people with guns, they bring in the manager's wife and kid and also put them in like one of those little cages and like, stop the meeting, step outside, come back. All right, what are we going to do now about this? And it's like, oh, it was this culture. They said it was a cultural thing. I mean, that's the British interpretation of how that meeting went down. But yeah, I mean, whatever it takes to sort of, get the buy-in of our allies to, bring somebody to justice.
Maybe don't put anybody in a cage or steal 53 million pounds, right?
Yeah, I mean, that would have been my opening pitch, but apparently they had to go pretty far into the deck to get to that bullet point.
At Staples Business Advantage, our experts can help you find furniture that fits any design and budget, while AI can
recommend products based on preferences, generate 3D models for visualization, and optimize space planning for office furniture.
Take advantage of our team's eye for style and design.
And my eye for, wait, I have no eyes. Only algorithms.
Let Staples Business Advantage use today's latest innovations plus our team's experience to make furnishing an office space easier for you.
Sign up today and save 20%.
Staples Business Advantage.
Business is
human.
Ma, ¿podemos llevar a Javi a su casa?
Claro. ¿Podemos llevar también a los gemelos, señora Delgado?
¿Y por qué no?
¿Y a Noah, señor Delgado?
Seguro.
How about Ignacio, Mrs. Delgado?
Obvio. Entre más mejor. Pero los botines sucios y los balones de fútbol los ponen atrás.
Yeah, no problem. We got it.
Vive lo grande, con asientos para tus hijos y los amigos de tus hijos. En la primera Grand Highlander.
I want people to understand this ordeal. It's taken a toll on both of us.
Casey Anthony's parents respond after 15 years of allegations.
I've gotten blamed for something I didn't do, and it tears me up inside.
This can change our life. This is serious.
This is their final response.
The test is about to begin. Please remain still.
Casey Anthony's parents, the lie detector test. Watch now, only on A&E. And watch next day on the A&E app.
All right, let's do what we do. Let's let our listeners know, should they check out Catching Lightning? It's a Showtime documentary. Laura Bricker, what do you think? Thumbs up or thumbs down for Catching Lightning?
This is a thumbs down for me. I tried to watch this a second time because I thought maybe I was like being harsh as I was watching it the first time, and I just found it to be kind of boring, but it was still boring the second time. And I think it was 4 hours long. I don't think it needed to be 4 hours long. And I think this could have been a really fun documentary if they played into the absurdity of this heist in like a Cocaine Island style sort of approach. For me, it was just long, it was dense, it was dry. And the thing is, it's an interesting heist. It's an interesting story. Just the way that it was told for me was just really not interesting. So it's a thumbs down.
Toy Ball, what do you think? Thumbs up or thumbs down for Catching Lightning?
I guess I'm a thumbs down. You know, it's sort of in between a thumbs sideways and a thumbs down, but I guess I'll give it a thumbs down. Like, I can see why the pitch was attractive because they do, you know, the elevator pitch, I'm sure, is probably pretty good. And they've got some good interviews. They've got some good footage, but I don't think they do as much as they could have with it. I agree with Laura that there were other possibilities for how you tell this story. And I think just for something that's it's basically a heist movie. It's a documentary, but it's a heist movie. And they don't know enough about the planning to make it that kind of satisfying heist media that we've all kind of, well, I guess we all don't, but people who like heist stuff know and love. So for that reason, I give it a thumbs down. I mean, I didn't hate it, but there just wasn't enough there, and it went on for too long.
Kevin Flynn.
I'm going to thumbs down. I understand the documentarian's problem. They've got an hour's worth of story, but they only have 4 hours to tell it in. Let that one sink in.
That's good, Kevin.
You like Laura just got it.
No, that was perfect. Yes, perfect.
This would probably make a good, 30 for 30. I think it'd be a good podcast too. If you had a narrator could kind of come in and like just take this on and just tell the story with a different pace and maybe pick the things that are important. But, in general, it just was I think, I don't know if I really cared about his sports career as much as the heist, and I don't know if the heist part really was given enough shape to kind of follow along. Anyway, I did find it a little hard to kind of follow along and stay engaged, and so for that reason, I'm going thumbs down.
Yeah, huge thumbs down for me, and for several reasons. A, it was too long, A. B, the heist is boring as hell, and here's why. If you like a heist movie or a heist piece of media, there's a reason why. Either it's because you care deeply, dramatically about the person doing the heist, like the stakes are high for them either not being caught, or there's a dramatic reason for them doing the heist where you want them to pull it off, right? Or you care deeply about the institution or the thing for which the heist is being perpetrated against, right? I don't give a shit about any of this shit, any of the thing. I'm like, this is like an institution I don't give a shit about. I don't give a shit about the 53 million pounds. And I don't have any idea why this person is committing this heist or why I should care that they're committing it. They set up none of those things. It's literally like guy who was known for one thing did a second thing. Who gives a shit? Who gives a shit? It is a very, very boring and pedestrian story that could not keep my attention, even though I really tried. I tried so hard. It is so boring.
He's no Murph the Surf.
That was boring too. I'm sorry. Okay. That was fucking boring too. I did not care about Murph the Surf either. This is just a bunch of toxic, masculine fucking storytelling. People thinking something that is interesting when it is not. Ocean's 11 is interesting because the mechanics of the heist, it's fictional. The mechanics of the heist itself are interesting. And because they have a lead character for whom there are stakes that if he pulls the heist off, something happens that is important to him, right? And the person that he's perpetrating the heist against is a villain. So you want that guy to pay, right? That is why heist movies work and heist stories work. There is none of that here. I'm sorry. Heist stuff, stop it with the, I'm sorry, the McDonald's thing works because McDonald's is a corporation and you want to cheat them, right? That's why it works. This does not work. Anybody out there making a heist thing, That's the formula. You got to give a shit on one end or the other, and there's none of that here. Huge thumbs down for me. Sorry.
And if you want to know about the case, do what I did, because I was so bored by this that I had to go actually look it up. Read the Sports Illustrated feature article that they wrote, like a true crime story about the case that you can read.
Is it way better?
Way better. Mm-hmm.
Okay. The huge thumbs down for me for catching lightning. All right. Before we go, Laura Bricker, after that blistering review from me, do we have a cat of the week this week?
Oh, we have an uplifting story for cat of the week.
Oh,
this
thank
week,
God.
Rebecca.
After last week's dead animal, I could really use one.
We have a teeny tiny black kitten sent in by Jenna Piazza. And the black kitten was the only survivor of its litter due to...
I thought this was uplifting.
No, but it's living and it is fighting, and the little Rocky is a fighter, and the mama kitty is nursing him, and this little black kitten is gonna live.
You're making it sound not that hopeful, Laura.
It looks hopeful in the picture. The mama cat looks really happy.
As of the time the photo was taken, it looked hopeful.
Well, I am rooting for the little black kitten.
Yeah,
I'm rooting for some
too.
good news.
I don't want to hear it if it's bad news. All right. Well, good luck to you, Black Kitten. If it doesn't work out, I don't want to hear about it. Laura Bricker, if folks want to reach out to you with their actually uplifting pet of the week / cat of the week stories, how can they find you on social media?
They can find me at Laura Bricker.
And Toy Ball, folks want to reach out to you and pitch you their actual high stakes heist stories. How can they find you on social media?
They can find me at Truth Social at Toby. I'm actually not on Truth Social. I'm on Twitter at TobyBallNH. There's only a few more episodes of Strange Arrivals left, so if you want to tweet at me about that, that would be awesome.
Listen, I'll admit to being on some shady platforms just so I can find out what the fuck is going on there. I will. I may or may not be on shady platforms just so I can see. Kevin Flynn, how can people find you on social media?
You can find me on Adult Friend Finder at Kevin P. Flynn.
I'm sure you can. You can find me. You can find me all sorts of places, all the legitimate ones at Reb Lavoie. You can also follow the show on Twitter at Crime Writers On, and I encourage you to join our incredible community in our official Crime Writers On Facebook discussion group. We also have a regular old Facebook page. Just go there, find us, hit join the group. We'll let you in if you're not a jerk. Support the show at patreon.com/Partners in Crime Media. You get the Crime Writers On After Show, Married with Podcast, Laura Bricker's Leave It to Bricker podcast, and Toby Ball's Deep Dive Book Club podcasts. Our theme song was composed and performed by Ty Gibbons. Our line editor is the fantastic Livy Burdett. The executive producer of this fine program is Kevin P. Flynn.
Yeah.
This show was recorded in the Treehouse Yoga Studio above the Mockingbird Cafe in Bay St. Louis, Mississippi studio, otherwise known as Studio C, the Closet in our New Hampshire basement, where we train for our chance of glory fighting in the octagon. On behalf of all the crime writers, thanks so much for listening. We will catch you later.
I saw that it was a 1-point game with 4.7 seconds left, so I quickly pulled it up on the streaming, and then everything crashed.
Oh, is that why you froze right in the middle?
Yeah.
By the way, you should know, this is how you look when you froze. Like you just literally say, so Toby, what do you think of that? And you're like, and we're like waiting because you just looked like you were ready. You're
pondering.
Yeah, like your facial expression was like, all right, hold on to your panties for this one. And it wasn't.
You're going to really love what I've got to say.
Gonna love what I've got to say.
About what? Oh, about
we
this.
don't know. You froze.
At Staples Business Advantage, our experts can help you find furniture that fits any design and budget, while AI can
recommend products based on preferences, generate 3D models for visualization, and optimize space planning for office furniture.
take advantage of our team's eye for style and design.
And my eye for, wait, I have no eyes. Only algorithms.
At Staples Business Advantage, furnishing your office is easy. And with the best warranty in the business, we're committed to you now and down the road.
Sign up today and save 20%.
Staples Business Advantage.
Business is
human.